Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Hey, this is your man, Scott McKay, and I want to welcome you to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. You can find me at Scott McKay on Twitter, Real Scott McKay on Instagram, Scott McKay on YouTube. The Facebook group is Mountaintop Summit, and of course, you can find us always at www.mountaintoppodcast.com. With me today is a guest who is someone I've known for quite a long time, really, and it's quite overdue to get her on this show. I have to tell you something. The first time I heard about this lady's gig, I didn't know what to think about it. I thought it was a little gimmicky because her deal is she masters offline dating. She's the mistress of mastering offline dating, if you will. And I was thinking to myself, offline dating. You know, that sounds kind of, like I said, gimmicky. Everybody's moving online. You know, the apps have taken over the world. Everybody's meeting each other on Match.com. And this lady wants to get everybody offline. It sounded kind of like she was looking for a niche that may not have been there anymore. At least not specifically. But you know, with what's gone on over the past few years and people just getting fed up with what's going on with online dating apps, I think she may have been downright prescient. She's starting to look like a genius. So now more than ever is the time to get my friend Camille Virginia of Master Offline Dating on this show to talk about the triumphant return of offline dating. Camille, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're still recovering from what I said in my intro, I'm sure, because you never knew I felt that way, right?
I didn't, but I love it.
Oh, good. As long as you love it, we can still be friends. No, I have to tell you, I did. I thought your gig was gimmicky. Maybe I was bold enough and maybe arrogant and, you know, mean enough to say it to you when I first met you, but I don't remember it. And I was thinking, well, you know, she knows what she's doing. It's a nice niche, but I'm not sure everybody's going offline. Nowadays, are you hearing the same thing I am? Are you hearing that people are just absolutely frustrated to the hilt, especially with apps?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's an epidemic out there. And the problem is they're not necessarily going offline, but they just don't know what to do now. So we can talk about that later, but I totally agree with you.
Well, hell, let's talk about it now. I mean, what better place to start? I mean, apps being an epidemic. I mean, last I checked, Camille, epidemic had to do with disease and disorder. And that's what I call it. I call it app disease. People have been socially, I don't want to use the term retarded because, you know, it's not politically correct anymore, but there has been a retardation in the actual sense of the word, the dictionary sense of people's social skills and how they interact with each other. I mean, you know, we've all gone to a restaurant and seen a bunch of 17-year-old kids thumbing away at their smartphones instead of actually talking to the people who are in front of them. I mean, that's a cliche nowadays. But you've got people online trying to meet each other who have no idea what to do with each other once they actually meet each other. A couple shows ago, I made the analogy of a dog chasing a car. What does that dog do with the car once it catches it? It's kind of like how every first date is going nowadays, right?
Oh my God, I love that analogy. Yeah. And you're talking to the people who actually get offline. I mean, there's a whole slew of people who can't even get that far. So yeah.
I call that living vicariously through yourself. You're just enjoying the attention you get without any inkling whatsoever that you're ever going to get to meet these people, nor maybe do you even want to, right? It's just the attention.
Yeah, it's the attention, the validation. It's feeling like you're being social by being on social media and the apps, but you're not getting that deep human fulfillment of experiencing another human that is intrinsic in us. It's not being met, but you think it's being met by staying behind a screen.
Well, I think that's the Facebook effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people get together on Facebook, quote unquote, and they like each other's posts and they go, okay, well, look, I've done my social time with this person. I've checked in with them. I don't have to talk to them again for another 6 months. What are we doing? I mean, do we not even like people anymore? And it seems like the more people were social in a past life, like high school or college or in some kind of social circle where I knew these people, a job I had when I was younger, the more social they actually really were, the more time they're spending on Facebook pretending to be social with a bunch of people. I mean, yeah, you get a huge reach. You get a bunch of people you can talk to. You can reconnect with people you didn't even know still were breathing oxygen, but it's still fake. It's still an electronic facsimile for real socialization. And this is really hurting not only people's friendships, it's hurting people's ability to get into romantic relationships, right?
It is. And yeah, it's just, oh, it's so sad. And I think that people tend to kind of follow the people around them. And so that's why I think it's become an epidemic. Everyone just kind of thinks it's the norm to spend hours on Facebook and not actually see the vast majority or any of the people that you're connecting with electronically. And then they sit at home and they feel lonely and they feel isolated and they wonder why. Well, I've been on social media for 5 hours, liking and tweeting and posting, but I'm deeply lonely, but also terrified to go out. So let me just go back on social media and get that need fulfilled in another instant. But the loneliness is still there.
They're still physically alone. Hello. I mean, there's still nobody there. I mean, it's a societal movement, isn't it? We're headed in this direction. We've headed in this direction. I mean, we're in the post social media era, if you ask me. I mean, this is old hat at this point. So now you have the fallout, in my humble opinion. Let's see what you think of this. That the damage done by all the social media players, chiefly Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, has been done. I mean, we are now brainwashed into living that lifestyle where online communication is equal to being social. And indeed, when you actually do meet people in real life who you've met on social media before, you can have a completely different understanding of them. I remember there was a guy in one of the forums on Facebook, one of the Facebook groups that I frequent that has nothing to do with dating or relationships. It's something that, I'm involved with otherwise. And he and I would get practically to fisticuffs with each other disagreeing. Okay. Then in real life, at an event somewhere in the United States, we happened to meet each other and got along wonderfully. And it was like 2 beers into it, we realized that we were those people. It's like, you gotta be kidding, son of a bitch. You're not that bad a guy in real life. It's like, yeah, I mean, go figure, right?
Interesting. I think that there's people's online personas and then there's people's real life personas. And of course, even before the days of online dating and social media, people would kind of put on a persona when they met people in person that was a little bit different from who they were. But the difference between people's real self and who they project online can be night and day, even if it's unintentional. But a lot of the times it's intentional.
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point. You can manipulate the anonymity of the internet a lot more effectively than you can what your persona is like in real life. I mean, you can only go so far when you're flesh and blood. You can't fake it all that much, at least relatively speaking, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's sad because people are able to be the person that they want to be or they feel they should be from behind a screen. They get away with it. And so they get a little more comfortable lying and they get more comfortable lying. And pretty soon their online persona is night and day from their real life persona and they don't know how to bridge that gap.
Yeah. And plenty of people have also observed quite correctly that you're an awful lot braver when you're not face to face with someone. Things you'll say to someone online who you're thinking you'll never meet in real life will be preposterous and really, in my opinion, show what your character is really like compared to, whatever restraint you would show when you're meeting someone face to face.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I call it the mean behind the screen, but it's, just because you can get away with something doesn't mean that you should. I mean, if someone said, hey, you could go rob this bank and not get caught, would you go do it because you could? Or would you not do it because you shouldn't? So I really don't understand why people think it's okay to lie, to harass from behind a screen. And yet they probably don't want that done to them. And they would never do that face to face. Like, I don't know. I think it's a values level situation. I think it's also a values crisis going on here.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. So with that, what caused you to really start thinking about this idea of going back to our roots and meeting each other offline, especially for the purpose of dating and starting a romantic relationship? Because you really were kind of ahead of the curve on that. You were before your time.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I like to say that this topic found me, actually. I actually grew up pretty shy with social anxiety. And at some point, I just got sick of it. This was probably maybe 15 years ago or so. And so I just started talking to people. I just pushed my comfort zone and did things that scared me. And I fell in love with connecting with people. And in the process of that, I started getting asked out by men in everyday places like the grocery store or on the bus or at the airport. And this was right around the time when apps were coming out. Online dating was becoming more acceptable. Apps were coming out. Tinder hit the market. And here I am going to the grocery store and getting a date. And my friends who are on apps, not talking to men in real life, are like, how do you do it? I was like, how do I do what? So I had just kind of honed these skills accidentally, found a love of connection. And then lo and behold, started teaching workshops because I was so passionate about this. That turned into a business. And now I could kind of see this coming with online dating and apps. I didn't know that it would come to this level that it has of just burnout and total disgust so quickly, and to the level that it has. It's scary because I don't know that it's actually peaked yet.
Well, I call it Planet of the Apps. Kind of the app singularity. The apps now control us. They don't work for us anymore. Mm-hmm. We're doing what the app says we should do. And we can elaborate on that. But I love what you said about how 15 years ago or more, guys weren't asking you out. That's what I inferred from that. And you figured out it was because you were presenting yourself as this shy person who wasn't very social. And I'm sure by now you figured out all these guys probably did notice you. They probably thought about asking you out, but because you weren't exactly inviting that attention from them, you didn't get it. A lot of women really struggle with that. And yet, what did you figure out? You figured out, hey, look, I don't like this. I want to be more social. You look more approachable to guys. You're offering more social cues, and voila, what happens? These guys start giving you positive attention. You start going out on more dates. The reason why I can so glibly recount that whole story is because it happens a lot with women we coach also. And I'll tell you what, Camille, Emily coaches women to go through the same journey you did, to go from that shyness or that reticence, or even in some cases, that distrust or even dislike of men, and go through a healing process with that to the point where you can feel a little more happy-go-lucky, a little more spontaneous, a lot more willing to give some signals and cues to the good guys out there so that you can start striking up conversations. So I love it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I think you were very flattering with my story, Scott. Honestly, I was a mess back 15, 20 years ago. I just couldn't even look people in the eye. I was so shy. So it was a journey for sure. But that's why I feel like for the women who they just need some small shifts in being more approachable and open and letting the guy know that they're interested in a way that doesn't even involve talking, that can just make such a huge difference in attracting people in the real world. It doesn't have to be a whole long journey like I went through. I bet most women listening, most guys listening are way ahead of where I started. So if I can do it, they can do it.
Well, on behalf of all the guys listening, bravo, because men everywhere, I'm sure, are standing up and cheering at the thought of you teaching women how to be more approachable so that they can meet more guys, because we need all the help we can get because we're human too. And if a woman's got the RBF working, like at the airport, like you mentioned, we're not going to talk to her. We don't want to get our head shoot off. What are we, praying mantises around here? Hell no. We want to talk to women and we want to have it go well. We're not going to take unnecessary risks. We may be men and we may have this tough exterior and yada, yada, yada. But, hell no. We're not going to do something that's going to end badly just for the sake of doing it unless we're stupid, and we're not.
I love that.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I say in my book. That is, men and women, dating is a team sport. The men are terrified, the women are frustrated. There's a whole range of emotions in between that, but really, let's get on the same page here, people. We're both trying to work towards the same thing and meet each other. So women, make it easy for him. You don't know how many times he was rejected in the past. Maybe he's been publicly humiliated by another woman and he has some trepidation approaching you. Men, if she can kind of give you some cues and help you out, find that moment of bravery. If you're feeling it and you're feeling a little safer than maybe you normally do around women, then go for it and make those connections, bust through the fear. Because I guarantee your worst nightmare that you have running in your head, your worst fear with talking to someone is not going to come true.
It's so interesting you would mention that. A little bit of bravery goes a long way. And gentlemen, if you treat women with respect, give them space and make that conversation, if she bites your head off, like aforementioned praying mantis mama, it's her problem. That's a broken woman. She's a head case. People don't go around treating people terribly when someone came to them in a friendly, respectful mode. It just doesn't happen. And yet you're right. I mean, that is a huge nightmare to a lot of guys. I'm going to talk to this woman and she's going to look me up and down and start enumerating a whole bulletized list of every one of my most fearsome sticking points, and I do talk to guys for whom it does happen. And even in those cases, they probably need to look in the mirror and evaluate how they're coming across, because what they're doing is they're kind of sucking the safety out of the situation, and women are feeling a little threatened or a little creeped or just not quite safe. And that's why I harp on making women feel safe and comfortable in your presence so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like that. I think everyone wants to feel safe. Going to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we really need that safety and security. Men don't want to feel like they're going to be publicly humiliated and rejected in an embarrassing way. Women want to make sure that the man approaching her is not going to attack her and force her to do something. So I think if we can all just create that safe environment, and that happens with small steps, right, Scott? So, a smile, eye contact, a hi back, and just kind of building up to something. It doesn't have to be a big, huge, grand gesture. In fact, I'm going to say if it is a big, huge, grand gesture with a stranger, you might scare them away. So start small.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for a lot of guys, what you're saying is going to sound like common sense. They just kind of wished more women would take the lead in that and at least give them cues. I don't think guys need to be asked out. I don't think it needs to become a big Sadie Hawkins dance out there. And a lot of guys say they want that. But in reality, if it starts happening, they kind of raise their eyebrows at the woman and go, huh? What are you doing? Well, can't you get any guys to ask you out? Why are you asking me out? It's kind of like one of those things you have to be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. But guys do appreciate when women will smile or give them an eye contact or even a small, almost innocuous comment so that they know the door is open and they can walk through it. That's where I think the big disconnect has always been in terms of men and women meeting offline. But I want to go back and revisit what we said we would revisit, which is this idea of online dating really taking a dive. And it's almost nowadays as if the apps have taken control of us. And what I mean by that is nobody's having fun on these apps, but they feel obligated to use them anyway because, hey, everybody else is. So, what does this look like? Well, everybody enjoys the attention that they would potentially get from an online dating site or especially from the apps. The problem is, and I'm not sure I've really ever broken this down on the show, the problem is men have been coached to swipe right on everybody just to save time and see who comes back to them. Hence the whole business model over at Bumble, right? Women are the ones who initiate actual contact with the men after the men show interest in them. Well, if men are swiping right on everybody, it means they're really choosing nobody. Now, you have to compare that mindset of, hey, let's swipe right on everybody and see what we got going on to what's going on in a woman's mind, which is, since I don't go around throwing the proverbial bucket of spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks when it comes to attractive men out there, they're thinking like a woman. Hey, this guy chose me. All these guys who are swiping right on me, they think I'm wonderful. They really want to meet me and connect with me. So you have women who aren't even very used to getting a whole lot of attention from men offline at all of a sudden thinking, where have all these guys been my whole life? I'm popular. This is great. So they're getting pickier. They're thinking, okay, well, since I had 1,000 guys swipe on me, I'm going to go for the cutest 60 of them or 40 of them. That's still
Lord.
38 too many, and then they can't keep all these dates. The men actually really didn't care about them. They're like, oh, well, she swiped me back. Go figure. I'm looking for someone else. Everybody's grass is always greener vis-a-vis who it is that really swiped on them to begin with. It's a bunch of mixed messages. Everybody thinks there's interest there that doesn't really exist. Then at the same time, everybody's got too much faux interest to even sort through to begin with, and ghosting, flaking, breadcrumbing, all these crazy terms people have come up with to describe the bad things that ubiquitously happen to everyone who uses dating apps. Oh, but I'm not finished yet. Ready? Even the really hot movie star types out there who are used to getting everybody falling at their feet offline, what's happening there? Well, they've got too much interest to sort through. So they're saying, oh, sure, I'll meet you on Friday night. Oh, but wait, someone better came along. Maybe I'll meet with them instead. Oh, wait, someone better than them just hit my inbox. Ooh, look at all these pretty shiny objects. Men and women not only are becoming spoiled brats, but they're like dogs chasing their tails, going nowhere with this. Now, another thing to layer on top. What we're doing is we're training women to act like men. And it's in the exact same way that women most complain about with regard to men. You're shown a picture and some weird little quote that they lifted off of Google. That's all you know about this person, okay?
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of Hinge. Hinge is trying. I'll give them that. You've got some picture that probably doesn't even represent them, and you know nothing about this person, and that's all you have to go on. So what are women being trained to do? They're being conditioned. And like I said, this is the post-app world, right? We're long since indoctrinated. It's been several years now. Women have been trained. They have been conditioned to evaluate men based on looks alone. So now you have the women wanting all the hot guys and all the guys wanting all the hot women. And it is superficial AF out there. No one, connection? What in the world is that? Connection? That's so 2005. What are you even talking about? And it comes back full circle to something we've already talked about. You know what that is? Loneliness. Everybody is getting all this attention on apps, but not one iota of it is real. It's all faux attention, just like I said. The apps now own us. We don't even know how to get off them and go meet people in the real world because that would involve connection. That would involve doing something real. That would involve taking care of yourself physically, having a personality, and getting off your pedestal of all these crazy expectations that you never had a right to have to begin with. How's that for a rant for you? Did I just sum up the whole business model? Am I on a roll here?
Yeah, I support it. You know a lot more about online dating and apps than I do. I see the fallout from it from my female clients. So
that's the important part. All my rants are based on thinking too hard and pure conjecture. So you go, girl. You tell me about what you got going on. It's more important to this conversation anyway.
Oh, no, I like it. I think you have some great points that I hadn't even thought of what's going on behind the scenes. I talk about, the mean behind the screen and how, like we've already talked about, people are mean to each other when they're not face to face. I think also an important component to add on to men and women being conditioned with apps is that apps are designed to keep you addicted and keep you single. They are literally designed to do that. When you find the love of your life on Tinder, Tinder loses you. They lose your eyeballs, the advertising revenue associated with you as a member. If you have a paid version of an app, they lose your revenue. All these things, why would they want to give you what you're seeking on them? It's not in their best interest at all. And they're designed after casino games, slot machines, swiping, same thing, addiction. So why would you want to put the most important decision of your life, finding your partner, in the hands of companies who just want your eyeballs for dollars and are actively preventing you from finding them?
That's a solid point, and it's very well taken. Facebook and Twitter have been called on the carpet for being addictive by design, and they really don't have a good answer for it. People who have left those companies have sort of gone on the warpath against that very premise of how addictive all of these electronic apps are. Hell, any of us who have kids under 12, well, who am I kidding? Any of us who have kids under 25 understand how addictive electronics are to that generation of kids. But I'll tell you, if you have kids under 12 right now or 14, it's almost like they were born with the programming to get right on an iPhone and figure out what the hell to do with it. It is absolutely crazy. These kids don't know an era where there wasn't a smartphone. Emily's 25-year-old son was born when the internet came out. Even at that age, he's a quarter lifer at this point. He doesn't know a world without a .com behind it. My son, who is about to turn 12, doesn't know a world where he doesn't have a smartphone in his hand. And the wiring, it's almost like it's in the DNA. How are we going to heal from this, Camille? Because I sense that this is all going to hit a critical mass and people are going to go, wait a minute, you know what? This just didn't work. We can't meet like this anymore. I mean, we already saw it a little bit with speed dating, right? I mean, speed dating was supposed to be the next big thing. And then finally people just went, you know what? I'm throwing up my hands. Hello, this doesn't work. At some point, you gotta hope, just like with all the political division in the United States and people going crazy about what clearly is not scientific somehow being the norm, you got to think that that's going to come home to roost in terms of how we meet and relate to each other as men and women, or, you know, gay or straight, it doesn't matter. How we build romantic relationships with each other. You got to figure that we're all going to collectively arrive at this common conclusion that, you know what, this isn't working. And the bottom just fell out of this. How long do you think that's going to take? Well, first of all, do you agree with me? I'm guessing you do, but how long do you think it's going to take before people really stand up to be counted and say, I'm ready to start meeting people IRL again?
I do agree with you. And God, I hope you're right, Scott. I hope the bottom does fall out. And I would love for people to have the pendulum swing back to the other side and start wanting to meet IRL.
Not to be confused with IRC. That would be a real regression, wouldn't it?
Oh, I don't know. What is that?
Oh, that's the chat rooms from the
mid-90s.
God. That's what got the whole ball rolling to begin with. The whole insidious ball rolling, like in Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
I'm laughing to keep from crying, by the way, you know, but absolutely.
It's a sad state of affairs. I mean, to your point, though, there are like multiple generations at this point who don't know how to function without a smartphone, without the internet. They just haven't lived in a world without those things. So even if they wanted something more, I don't know that they know what it is. For the people who are our generation and older, and they do remember a time where there was no internet and no dating apps, I think that damage has been done. I think there are people who will want to hone their social skills, but I don't know what it looks like. And the technology is advancing so fast. I'm not really sure. I have hope, but my role is for the people who are aware enough to want help, or at least know that something isn't working. I want to give them those tools to connect in the real world.
Yeah. You know, my parents are in their mid 70s and they're addicted to Facebook. So, the conquest may be complete, to be honest. But you made a nice segue there to talking about what it is you tell people who want to start meeting offline again. How do you wean people off the smartphones and off the apps and off the dating sites? And what do you tell them, Camille, to get them started meeting people in the real world again?
Well, call me lazy, Scott, but I don't want anyone, or I don't work with people who don't want to give up at least some of their time online. If they're happy online, or even if they're miserable online, but they don't want to do anything about it, I'm not going to fight that battle. The people that find me are the ones who know that something isn't working and they want some kind of help, even if they don't know exactly what I do.
Well, the happily addicted people wouldn't want to find you anyway. It's like being a happy drunk. You're not going to volunteer for rehab, right?
Exactly. But also, the people who are miserably addicted but don't want to get help. There's the miserable drunk who also is not going to go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting too. So they don't find me either. But I want to help the people who want help. That makes my job easier and they get much better results and they're open and receptive. So yeah, there's so much. I mean, humans met each other for eons. Then we populated the planet to where it is now without the use of dating apps and online dating. So we still have those connection tools. That has not changed. They've just been buried.
You mean you're kind of reminding people of their roots is what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Our human need for connection, the feeling the presence of another human's energy in front of you, those things that they're intangible. You can't see them on a screen. You can't get the dopamine high when you get a like on your post, but it's the feeling coming away from a meaningful conversation when you're like, damn, that felt great.
I overheard a couple on a first date in Houston the other day while Emily and I were there. And she was wearing a little black dress. She was looking all cute. She was real cute, little blonde gal with librarian glasses on. And the guy was sitting next to her, trying not to mess up. He was being very serious and asking very deliberate questions and trying to keep from being needy or leaning in or looking like he was trying too hard. And he ended up just seeming cold and lifeless. And sure enough, the poor gal was looking around. I mean, he was talking to her and she was looking around going, is there a way out of here? And, aside from all of that, he was committing probably cardinal sin number 1 for a first date. He was chewing Copenhagen. I mean, the dude was dipping on a first date. I mean, guys, leave the can of Skull in the car. Leave the can of Cope in the car. You don't need to roll that out on the first date. It is a bad idea. Women, even if they're going to tolerate it later in the relationship, are going to think you absolutely lack any kind of social skill or ability to attract women or experience attracting women at all. You will have none whatsoever. You will have no credibility in that regard in any way, shape, or form if you're chewing Copenhagen on a first date. I just thought I'd throw that out there because in 13 years I never have. But sure enough, this guy was doing that. Plus he was being incredibly guarded and boring. No idea how to be warm and light and make conversation and help her laugh because he hadn't had any experience at it in ages. And for the woman's part, she wasn't off the hook. She wasn't helping. She didn't know how to do it either. It was like two people with no idea how to be social whatsoever trying to start the fire of a relationship. And there was no spark to be had there, let me tell you.
Well, that's too bad. And really, it's so simple once you kind of go back to the basics of how to connect with someone. Just start caring about them, get curious about them. And it's amazing when you give that experience to someone, magically, they tend to give it back to you. And then you can kind of foster a conversation, get more invested, gradually more and more, get more interesting topics come up, and there, voila, you have a conversation that actually means something.
And that kind of leads to a new angle on a topic we talk quite a bit about around here. When you're only getting your social input online, you are very much subject to groupthink in terms of how to think about entire certain groups of people. Whatever echo chamber you're socializing in on Twitter or Facebook is going to tell you how to think about men if you're a woman and how to think about women if you're a man. And you can be left thinking something completely abhorrent is the new normal. And you've got this going on all over the place. You've got men thinking all the women are terrible, women thinking all the men are rapists, and really the vast, vast majority of people just want to get together and they really want to get along. You mentioned earlier that dating is a team sport and relating is a team sport. And what came to mind when you said that, Camille, was, yeah, and men and women are on the same team. Men aren't the Yankees and the women are the Dodgers. We're not adversarial here. Men and women are supposed to be on the same team meeting each other. That's what's going on when you say it's a team sport. And I think that's what we need to get back to. Men and women really want to meet and relate. And in order to do that, it can't be some digital experience. It's got to be in real life. It's got to be flesh and blood. It has to be face to face. It has to be human to human. And that's the bottom line, right?
That's the bottom line. And, our instinct to connect and be fulfilled by other humans didn't go out the window with the invention of the iPhone. It has served us for so long. It's there. That's why people feel lonely. They're trying to meet it. It's like they're trying to eat junk food so that they aren't hungry, but they feel gross. They're scratching the itch, but they're not getting the ultimate nutrients and fulfillment that they actually need if they were to just eat healthy food. So yeah, it's there and people want to connect. You're absolutely right. Everyone wants love, acceptance, acknowledgement. We have just kind of forgotten how to do it. And that's what I hope to change.
And on that note, I want you to tell these guys about your book before I point them to where they can buy it. What's the book called and what's it about, Camille?
Great. It's called The Offline Dating Method. And it is written for women, but the skills in it can be applied to any human. It's just basic connection skills and advanced connection skills too. There's something for everyone. Even if you're a pro connector, you're going to learn amazing things. And if you are on the other end and you're like, where do I even start with talking to people? I walk you through step by step. Like I have a whole chapter devoted to how to attract someone to you without saying a word. So just by being approachable. And it's very tactical, but very inspiring and entertaining. I give lots of client stories and my own journey stories. And yeah, it's a great book to form meaningful connections with everyone and get a date in the real world.
And as we record this particular podcast, that book is upcoming. It's brand new and it's on pre-order right now on Amazon. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it comes out September 17th, but pre-order is available right now.
All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, you can visit my Amazon influencer page at www.mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon, reasonably enough, and you'll find Camille Virginia's book right there at the top of the queue for you to grab. Also, if you go to www.mountaintoppodcast.com/Virginia, just like the Commonwealth of Virginia in the United States. And if you go to www.mountaintoppodcast.com/Virginia, you'll be able to buy Camille Virginia's book directly from there. And if you happen to be listening to this after September 17th of 2019, you'll be able to get it out right and have it laying on your doorstep or landing on your Kindle almost immediately. So there you go. Camille, what a great spirited conversation and an idea that I think every female and male human being on earth nowadays needs to give strong consideration to. I really appreciate you stopping by, and thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Scott. This was great.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And gentlemen, go ahead over to www.mountaintoppodcast.com. Click the little button there that will put you in touch with me for a free 25-minute call where we can talk about anything that's on your mind and maybe talk about a good coaching program for you to get you off a top dead center and into a brave new world where you have the women of your dreams actually entering your life, online or offline. I mean, we ranted pretty hard on online dating here, but a lot of you guys are still online. Truth be told, I met my wife online. It was a different world back then in 2005. But however you're going to meet women, let's get those women in front of you. Let's get you in front of them and change your life by finally having the woman of your dreams by your side and living a wonderful, charmed life with her. That's what I've been doing for the past 13 years with Emily. And I think you deserve what you want, and that means you deserve the same. So go ahead over to www.mountaintoppodcast.com and get you some. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.